Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Emma Rogan. I work with the European MS platform. This morning, it's our second webinar on the theme of MS and work. And this morning, the theme is, in particular, MS, work and mental health. And we have as our presenter, Yolanda Higueras, who is from Madrid in Spain. She is a neuropsychologist, and she's going to present for us all about the different aspects of MS and work and identity. And she will have, I know it's going to be a fascinating presentation for you all. We currently have everyone on mute. We have a large number of attendees. If you have any questions, you will see on your right-hand side, there's a list of options. So please use the questions tab if you have any comments, if you have any questions, if you have anything you want to say or share. We will start the presentation in a couple of moments. Yolanda will present a number of her slides, then we'll pause to deal with some of your questions and some of your comments. And then Yolanda will continue to the end of her presentation, and we will again have more time for questions and comments. So without further ado, Yolanda, please, would you like to go ahead? Due to technical issues, I'm going to be running the slides, so Yolanda will be directing me during the course of the presentation. But please, Yolanda, go ahead.
Hello. Thank you very much, Emma. I firstly want to thank you for this invitation. I'm so happy to be here sharing with all of you and the people attending this webinar, and I hope this whole thing is going to be useful. I would like to, when you suggested me to do this kind of webinar, I knew that there were people before me working about this, and I just wanted to, twist a bit the idea about work and MS, because I know there's a lot of information out there, and there are people giving a lot of information and data about the results of the studies that has been done lately about this topic. But as long as this has to be also linked with mental health and cognition and neuropsychology, that is my field, I wanted to first, if you please go to the first slide, I want to first make some kind of first considerations here. So my first considerations will be some ideas I want you to work around. Sure, we're going to talk about MS and work, but I think that before doing that, we have to consider other things. Can you click all of them, please, Emma? So the things that we have to consider is that we are again talking about a topic that involves different things, not only work, not only MS, but only me, also you as person, as yourself, and those three factors nicely combined together. So my first considerations will be this kind of ideas that I'm offering you to work around them. This is food for thoughts, and I want you to have a moment, maybe not now, but along the following days, if you're very interested in this topic. I will give you some information, some ideas that I recommend you to work around them and consider which is your position about this. Can you click the next one, please? Because when we are talking about MS and work, we are just talking about this very specific red area where everything is combined together. This is how MS and work combines, and that's specifically the part of this whole idea that we are approaching when we are doing this kind of research. But again, there's other areas here that are worth to consider, and I want you to offer you some ideas about this. Can you click the next one, please? So consider yourself. I think this is a work that we all have to do, independently of which is our situation, which is our disease, or whatever. I think we must know ourselves, and this is a basic human being need. And for people with MS, it's also necessary. And can you click the next one, The first thing is to consider which kind of person you are. That might sound like a stupid question, but consider how many times have you actually thought about this? Are you a confident person? Or on the other side of the spectrum, are you shy or prone to be sociable? Are you a targeted person, or you're more of this kind of flowing with it person? Is everything in your life following an ambition, or you're just surviving? You're just dealing with things to survive? Are you this kind of person which consider honesty focus value, or you are one of those that don't mind to hide the truth um, idea or aspects in your life? Are you constant when you do things, or are you one of those persons lying back and again flowing with life and with things that happens? And consider what is important when you think about yourself personally. Is it more important your self-image, or are you more focused on your self-worth? These are questions that that would be a very nice exercise if you book one rainy cold afternoon and think about them, so you can draw a personal profile. That will help you because that will define you as a person. And the last thing I wanted to say here is that MS is not you. And to reinforce this idea is this kind of exercise. If you consider what is you, then you will be more certain that that is not what MS is. So this kind of work about me is something that I highly recommend you to do. Can you bring the next one, please, Emma? But the second area that we were considering in this first one is about your own MS. And it is also a very interesting work to do, to think about how is your MS. Is it new? Are you newly diagnosed, or is it just an old friend in your life, has been there for quite a long time? Which is the phenotype of MS you have? This has a lot of things to do with knowing about your own disease. Information is key, and knowledge about the whole disease is something very powerful that you have to work with. Another thing to consider about your MS is how far have you gone in the acceptance of the disease? Have you already accepted, or are you still in this work in progress about that? Are you having any kind of medication to control the disease or not? Does that medication actually manage to control the symptoms, or do you still have some of them that you have to consider to inform to your medical staff? Do you actually engage in the appointments? Because sometimes it's also a problem when you don't engage to do all the things you have to do to take responsibility about your disease. So can you think about that you're doing what you have to do with all the team that is working there for you, not only with the neurologist, but with the nurse, with the psychologist? Are you actually engaging to that? And are you also engaging to what you can do about it? Because there is some room there for improvement that only depends on you. Are you actually doing that? Are you actually engaging into healthy habits that everyone there is going to tell you that are good for you? And another thing to consider is, do you have all the information that you need to actually understand your disease? Do you know which are the limitations that this MS is causing you? Or are you, overthinking or subestimating some of the aspects of your disease? And the last question I'm throwing you is, what can I cannot do by yourself in this situation of the disease? Consider what is there that you can do independently, or what are the things that you might require some assistance due to your MS. That's another lot of information there, and another very interesting evening work here to consider, to think about the wholeness of your MS disease here. Can you bring the next one, please? But there's this third area here, that is the work. We are talking about work here. We are talking about MS and work. But I suggested, Emma, that sometimes we think about work, but we haven't done the pre-work, if you allow me, to consider, what about my work? Do I want to do this work? I don't know if, for the ones that are actually working, these kind of questions will also give you some light about what are you doing. Because one of the things I wanted to share with you today is, are you actually in the right work? Again, to get to that conclusion, it's good to analyze these questions I'm offering you here. Do I actually want to work? Because maybe I don't want to work. I just want to, do another thing. Or is this work I'm doing my type of work? Sometimes we're working in some places that are not our cup of tea, but we have to deal with, bills and obligations. But maybe that's not the type of work I like to do. And in that case, can I choose? Can I change my work? Do I have that possibility? Realistically speaking, can I do that? Or it's just that I'm, procrastinating and maintaining a work that I don't like? And how long I see myself doing this kind of work? Again, you have to introspectively consider, in an honest view, if that's the work that you see yourself doing in the long term. Can you do next, please, Emma? Thank you. Do you consider you are qualified to do something else? Maybe it's that situation where you're doing a very easy job and you are frustrated because you think you can do better than that, or the other way around. Do you think that you're doing a job that is very difficult for you, and that's just because of that you're struggling to do that work? It's very important to consider, again, from the more honest point of view that you're able to, is, do you have a plan B in case that work is not the work that you would like to do? Do you have a plan B here? And again, do you think that you're doing your best in the job you're doing? Or do you think you're kind of laying back and, surrendering because of the difficulties you're finding there? Another very interesting question is, how far do you want to go in this job? And this goes back to these ambitious aspects of yourself. Do you want to further this career, or do you want to, do the easy job and forget about it at 3 p.m. when you leave? And another very important point here is, how is your work style? Are you a teamwork, or are you more a self-paced person? That will definitely define your work environment. And the last question here is another bit of food thought. What can I do? What can you do if you're not working? Because at the end, maybe I'm going to show you some data now, but maybe you have to start working. But that's not the end of the world. You can definitely do something else. And then this is that would be very important if you have previously considered what is that other thing that you can do apart from working. So there you can see, you will find a lot of questions that you can address to define those three circles that we draw at the beginning, and to find which is the combination of those three, and from there start doing something about your work and related with your MS and with your own needs and requirements. So I think that's a lot of work to do, but I just wanted to share it with you. And I think we're going to stop here to see what are your thoughts about all of this.
Thank you, Yolanda. So far, people have been very quiet. They haven't asked any questions. But I suppose I will start, Yolanda, if I may. You have
Sure.
sort of probed people to perhaps think about things that they weren't expecting to think about
Yeah.
when they joined this webinar.
Hmm.
Um, because these are quite deep questions that you're asking people, about, well, maybe your current work isn't the work that you are meant to be doing, or as you said, you're qualified for something else. Where do I start? Where do people begin? If you've presented people with a lot of huge questions here.
I know,
So
I know.
if somebody is, you know, considering all of these things, where should they begin?
Well, as I said, this is a lot of work to do, and I recognize that it's not something that you can do on the fly. Um, Nevertheless, I think it's worth to do it. So I know this webinar is going to be available on the web for a while. So I recommend everyone there that sit down, take your notes, and answer these questions on your free time along the following weeks or months, because it's worth. But to the question, where do I start with all these things? I will say that the starting point will be an honest evaluation about how satisfying you feel with your work nowadays. So if you consider, you sit down and consider honestly and deeply this matter, you will realize that whether there's something that must be changed or not. So I will say that a very good starting point would be: am I happy with what I'm doing now?
It's quite a simple question, but it's
Yeah,
a big question. It's
I
a
know.
big question. I think if we all ask that question, we'll sit for a few hours with ourselves and think about that. It's a great question. It's a
I
really
know.
great question because it is so simple, but it's not easy. It's not an easy question to answer. We do have
But
one. Yes, sorry, go ahead.
no, I know there is a lot of things here. I don't know if people were expecting information that I will offer, of course. Otherwise, that would be cheaty. But my first idea is for you to work, and that's a lot of work to do. But the more difficult thing here, the majority of the times, is think honestly, and that's a very difficult activity, and but definitely has to be in the background for all of these questions I'm offering today here.
I and I you know I think this is a wonderful, I think this is a really challenging, and this is a really great way to deal with this topic, because it does challenge everyone who's here, and it, in our own unique way, we will deal with these questions differently,
Exactly, exactly,
but as you said, as long as we have honesty at the core of what we're doing, we are going to get a more fruitful result, let's say. Um,
I would like, just Emma, if you allow me just 10 seconds,
please.
I will add something here. Honestly usually is equal to fear, and fear will appear if you consider things honestly, but that will never be the reason why not doing that. Fear will appear, and then after it's there, we can work through it. But if we stop doing things because of fear, there will be no outcome. So don't worry to be afraid. That's perfectly fine, but try to do it anyway, and then find the resources to work through fear, because there are some there.
Thank you. I like that. Fear will appear, but it's going to do it. It's doing it anyway and working through it, and you will get those answers that we crave, that the answers that we're
Exactly.
looking for. We
Exactly.
do have a question from someone. They are not in, let's say, a group work environment. They're a social creature and they're struggling with self-doubt and with going down the wrong path, let's say, because they don't have the social contact with their work colleagues daily. Do you have any
Mm-hmm.
comment for that person? You know, it is if you're not working full time, or if you're part time, or like me, if you work from home, you don't have
Mm-hmm.
the opportunity to have social contact, and you don't necessarily have the opportunity to have that particular contact with work colleagues, which is a unique
Mm-hmm.
contact. Do you have any
Mm-hmm.
comments or thoughts
Well,
to share with people who are in that situation?
I will definitely like to ask this person, do you actually need that contact? Because again, if you know yourself and you're not a social person, maybe that's okay with you. You don't need to.
They are struggling a little bit with self-doubt, and
Social.
they do
Okay.
describe themselves as a social person, as a social
Okay.
creature. So
So in that context, if you actually would like to have that contact, I will. My thoughts about that are very biased by my own culture, and the culture here is very important. Some countries have more social abilities, and other people are more less that. So cultural aspects will definitely bias these kind of relationships. But again, if that's something that you would love to do and you would love to have, and you are actually a social person, you should have some abilities. And maybe you should be the one that starts the possibilities. Meaning, if your colleagues are not very into it, or they don't suggest social activities, or they're just laying back there expecting someone else's to suggest or to plan things, maybe you can be that person. Or maybe if that environment is part-time, or even, as you say, Emma, working from home or wherever, not meeting your colleagues every day shouldn't be something that has to definitely interfere with that, because you can organize contact outside of this environment. Maybe organizing things outdoors, or maybe meeting for reading clubs, or just for a walk, hiking, or a glass of wine or a cup of coffee outside there. But again, probably if no one is suggesting that, my suggestion would be you the one offering that plan to your mates and see how it works.
so reach out in another way. I suppose it's finding other ways to fulfill those needs that you have. And I thank you for that answer. There are a couple of comments I'm going to run through. Um,
Mm-hmm.
One person asked, how relevant is Maslow's theory of human needs to patients with chronic illness? That's a big question. I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer that in the half hour we have left, but it's certainly do you want to have a go? We have 1 moment.
Yes, definitely, definitely. So the question is how important it is, or
How relevant is the
how
is
relevant?
Maslow's theory of human needs to people with chronic illness? And
Well,
as they say, we all attempt to realize self-actualization.
well, for those that doesn't know about that, Maslow pyramid states that there are some basic needs, and if you don't get those basic needs, you cannot go up to the pyramid to the top, which is self-realization. And it is relevant, not for people with MS, but for everybody. So it's a worldwide rule. If you don't get your basic needs, you will never get your higher needs ever. Therefore, the answer is very straightforward. Definitely, they are very relevant. And if you don't get your basic needs, in this case, your health needs, that will definitely interfere in the pursuing of further needs, which are social needs and self-realization needs. So yeah, is very relevant again.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Really nice questions. Someone else is speaking about they're struggling with ebbing in and out of motivation due to the symptoms, due to fatigue and relapses and depression. And they do give themselves a hard time when they're not living up to what they think other people expect of them. Is there any way of calming down these, I suppose, these feelings of letting other people down? So they're self-employed, so clients and students, etc. So I suppose it's the outward, their perception of what people are thinking about them.
Well, my suggestion there in that, sorry?
Please go ahead.
Sorry. In that situation, my suggestion is be honest, because sometimes we overact things due to our need to please others. And if you're self-employed, and you're working with people, and your work depends on how people react to your suggestions or your behavior, that's a very important danger. I've seen myself suggesting this to my patients sometimes. People will consider tricky something that you offer as tricky. I don't know if you follow me when I say this. If you know you and your MS very well, you will you will create a natural how can I say
So it's maybe how you present yourself. So if you're presenting yourself as, if you're presenting maybe there are problems, whereas if you're sort of saying this is the problem, I have a solution, maybe.
I just wanted to point the thing that you have to build up a natural attitude about your MS, and if you offer that to the person in front of you, that natural attitude will be seen and will be, even unconsciously, will be grasped to be used to relate with yourself, with the person that you have in front. So the expectation of pleasing others, it shouldn't be your main focus. The ability to share with others on your own rules, with your own condition, that would be the target. And if you know it and you accept it and you work with it and you implement that in your life and yourself, that will definitely be shown to the person in front of you. So my suggestion would be work through a natural way to see you with the disease. Because if you need us to stop and you suggest that openly and naturally, the person in front of you will not be weird about it.
Thank you. That also covers some other people have asked questions about, if you're asked to go out to an event and you're feeling fatigued and you don't want to say it's because of the MS, if you have internalized the messages about your condition, you'll be able to express them better.
Yeah.
If you work through them yourself, you're able to express them better to the people around you, whether that's at work or whether that's personally speaking.
Mm-hmm.
We've one more question, and then I'd like to get back to the presentation. We're just quickly running out of time. Someone has described having, since their diagnosis, feeling that has made them a bit more fatalistic, and they're resigned to having their life cut short. And they're okay with that. But as they say, it makes wanting to participate fully in society a bit tricky. I think they're being a little bit edgy here, being a little bit funny, but describing that, and I think that is an issue, that you're told about your diagnosis, and as this person says, they're a bit more fatalistic and resigned to having their life cut short. Do you have any comment on that before we start again into the presentation, please?
Yes, I will definitely comment on that, because I think that might be one of the steps through the process, but maybe it's not the final step. Meaning that probably you know that when you're diagnosed and you have to face all the things that are going to happen to you, you have to go through a process to accept what you have and to live with it and to live through it. And you know, feeling more fatalist maybe is one of the steps, maybe the first, the second, I don't know which one, but the thing is that you shouldn't stop there. The thing is that you should work through it to get to the final steps, which are, you know, get back to your life the way that you want it. So feeling that way is pretty normal. I don't know, I don't want this person to feel weird about it. But my warning here is don't stay there. That's a very comfy area, but it's not the last step of your life. It's not the last step of this process. So stay there as long as you get strength enough to carry on walking through that process. But do it, because again, that's not the last stop.
It's not the last stop. Thank you. I think that's thank you for answering that question, and thank you for going through those questions. We will get to some more questions at the end. Yolanda, I'd like to go back into your presentation, please.
Okay.
And we will, as I said, there are a couple of other questions here that we will address at the end. But thank you for sending in your questions. Thank you for being so open, everyone. It's really, really quality stuff. Thank you so much. Okay, Yolanda, yeah. We'll go back to your presentation.
Okay, so as I said, I wanted to split this presentation, this webinar, in two main blocks. The first one was where a lot of suggestions for you to work, and now I'm offering you the data. Now I'm going to the more scientific bit of it and offering you information about what has been done so far about this topic and why is it worth to consider these aspects here. So the data I'm offering you here is based on this global employment report that the International MS Federation did with a lot of people, 2,000 people with MS worldwide. And the information here, if you click all of them, please, Emma, is this research was done with people that were young, that were mainly people with relapse and remitting phenotype, and that was people still working, young people working that left the work on the average of the third or fifth year after diagnosis here. So that is the people that answer this quest, which sounds like, if you consider that sounds more mainly this kind of general profile of people with MS working. Can you go to the next one? There. So again, I'm going to go on the background with this idea of these three main circles. And the first circle is about yourself. And this data about work was telling us something very important. The first graph on your left is telling you what was the report about, these people reported about which were the supports that actually helped them to stay at work. And you can see there that family support and the colleague supports were half of the time considered a very important point to stay working. And the next chart on the middle, you can see there which were the factors that these people, there, thank you. So the chart in the middle was saying which were the factors that these people consider important to stay at work. And that bit of information is telling us something very important. People out there knows which are the solutions to those problems at work. You already know if you consider, if someone asks you, what would you need? That was the response here. Flexible working hours and mainly aspects considering with having some rests and breaks. So On the right here, you see what I suggest you to do here. I suggest you to do some introspective work. Again, is related with what we're talking about a minute ago about considering your rational needs and capabilities. Go honest with yourself and see which are your needs and which are your abilities, because that will definitely um, uh, draw the profile you're gonna put in your workspace. And again, give it a thought. Is it what you want? That's another bit of things you can do. And consider if you have other abilities that you can use to work differently or to work in another different place. Uh, this is another job. This is another question I missed on the previous slide. That is, do you identify with your job? Maybe working 8 to 3 is not the type of work you will identify with, because you're more a freelance, or you're someone that would like to work at home. So just again, consider those aspects and find personal support. The chart on your left is saying that support either from family or colleagues is very important for people working. Can you go to the next one, please? Thank you. So here again, we go back to what is related with my MS. And this quest was offering also very important information. Here you can see on the center of the screen, you can see that the people answering this quest were mainly employed. You can see there that the relapse and remitting participants were 70%, 77% employed. So this is one reality. Fortunately, people are working. And on the bottom of that one is how long they have been working. So from around 5 to 10 years, the majority of people have been working. So on the left side of your screen, you can see which are the symptoms that when you go to your workplace will definitely interfere your work. And those interferences are related with your MS, strictly speaking. And again, that will sound you very familiar, that fatigue and physical disease or the physical uh, um, uh, incapabilities will definitely impact your workspace. But again, on the 30-something% spectrum, you have cognitive impairments, which again would be a very scary thing to face and consider in your working space. My suggestion here is you have to take responsibility. Can you go with the rest? You have to, my suggestion here is that you should accept the rules. You are playing. If you allow me to do this metaphor here, you're playing your cards, and the cards has been given, so you better play it well. You have to accept that you have your MS the way that it is, and from there you have to work around. And another very big responsibility that you have to face towards your job, towards your MS, is to be adherent to your treatment. It has been proven several times that if you don't take your medication, that will definitely impact your quality of life in many different aspects. So please, if you're having any medication, be adherent and take it, because that's one of your responsibilities. And also another very important responsibility is to learn how to deal with fatigue, because it's out there. It's gonna be it might be one of the main issues when you go to work, and there are ways to work through it. And you need to go out there and ask, how can I do it? And again, another big responsibility, not only to your MS and to your work, but to you as a person, is to engage with healthy habits. There, you have to stay in a nice and healthy body, nice and healthy mind, and balance in a balanced soul. So that's part of your responsibility. Can you go to the next one, please? And related with your work, now we are talking specifically on your work environment here. You can see on the graph on your left, which were the external factors that prevented people to stay in their job. And you can see that the majority of them were informing that having a workload that is not predictable was really a problem. And from there, you can also have some learning. And from there, you can also draw some consideration and adapt this information to your own workplace. Do you actually think that's a problem for you? And on the center here, you see which were the work-related factors that help people to stay there. And the first one is that more than half of them, half of the people that were asked in this quest suggested that having an stable MS was definitely a factor that impacted them to stay working. And this idea takes us back to the previous slide about you and your MS and your responsibility. So that's up to you, and you have a lot of room there to work. But other in the square area here, you can see other aspects that might depend on your employer, which is allowing you to work seated, allowing you to have flexible hours to work, and the other two are more related with your neurology or your medical support staff, which is having actually a modifying disease treatment and some treatment that manage your symptoms. So here, considering what this has to be to work, my suggestion would be act, do something, do whatever is required to anticipate your needs and anticipate what has to be done in order to avoid any kind of interference of your MS in your work. And go there and ask for changes. I mean, asking your work to offer you a chair to sit down, or offering you to swap places with a maid that is closer to the bathroom, that's something you can do. You have to act and do it. And if you don't know how to do it, you can go and look for professional help. There, I don't know if in the UK that's available, but here in Spain, for example, patient associations have people that help you to consider which are the problems that you have at work, and will offer to mediate with you, with your employer, and see what can be done to adapt or to ask for changes in your workload. So if you need professional help, go and find it. There's some there, some help there that you can actually definitely use. Can we go to the next one? Yes. Another very tricky point here is the side about sharing, and that's a very controversial point. Thank you. That's a very controversial point, and my suggestion is, do whatever is fine with you. There are some works that has proven that sharing is positive, but it will never be positive if it's not okay with you. So that's a very personal decision that you have to consider individually. Another thing that you can do is do your best, be the best professional that you can do. And if you're doing that, you're not forced to do further than that. I mean, you have to do it the best that you can and nothing else. And if you feel again that you're doing the work that is not for you, maybe you have to consider to change. And for that, you might have the possibility to ask to any kind of vocational advocacy about where to go, or what would be the change that it would be useful for you. And again, another important thing that I consider that we don't use as frequently as we should be is to measure the importance of it. Meaning, if I'm struggling with something, is that something that important to suffer for it, or is just something that I can deal with or act upon and solve it in a short-term period? So take the problems that are making us suffer and consider whether those are that important or we can do something about them. Next one, please.
We are, sorry, Yolanda, to interrupt. We have about 12 minutes left. So we have about 10 minutes left. So I'm sorry to rush you.
Okay. I don't know, Emma. I will definitely like to see what people out there want to share. So I don't know if that, for me, it would be okay to leave that information out there so they can go through that, or and go and see what people have to say, or do you want me to finish the presentation and
well,
I don't know, what do you prefer?
This is absolutely your choice. If you're comfortable with us sharing your presentation with the attendees, we can certainly do that. So people can go through. Yeah.
Yes, I'll be happy to if you do that, and I'll be happy to hear what people outside there wants to share or wants to comment about.
Okay, that's perfect. We can certainly do that. So we will share Yolanda's presentation later today or by the end of the week, as well as the recording. So if anyone has any questions or comments now, please use the question pane to ask them. Yolanda, one thing that you said there in your presentation, you spoke about vocational advocacy. Could you tell us a little bit more about that and what you mean by that, please? We have people from across Europe, so there would be different services available from our member societies and different MS societies across Europe, but also from different governmental agencies. So what does that look like to you?
Well, that's basically when you have to consider what to do in life professionally. There's some services out there that you can access to help you to make that decision. I don't know exactly how it works everywhere, but my idea about this vocational advocacy would be that someone sit down with you, ask you about your interests, ask about your training, and ask about your abilities, and put all together and mix it together and offer you a recommendation about what would be the ideal job considering these three factors. And that's definitely helping when you are, because sometimes we start working in whatever, and regardless which is our training, because we need to, as I said, we need to pay our bills, or we have some life requirements that pushes us to find any kind of job, but maybe that's not the job that we should be doing regarding our abilities or our training. So this kind of advocacy might be very useful to consider those three factors that definitely should be considered to define your professional career.
Yeah, because it does, again, back to some of the questions you asked at the start, it encourages people to delve deeper into their priorities, I suppose, as well as into into their capabilities and what is best for them.
Exactly.
Thank you for that. There's been a question about, and it's come up a few times in your presentation, about cognitive issues. When things take a little bit longer, it is very frightening to experience those difficulties. But you're in the workplace and it's difficult to assess how you're getting on. what is the best way to approach work when you have cognitive issues?
Well, that's a very tricky question, and that will definitely should have been approached in a complete different webinar, because there's a lot of things to consider
I
there.
know, and we're tactical a few minutes. I know,
And
I know.
you're
You're going to
offering
have
me.
to, Yolanda. You're going to have to come back. You're going to have to come back.
I was so amazed to come back here and talk about cognition. You know, that's my field. But in these 10 seconds that I will have to answer this question, I would say something very broad, which is, if you have cognitive impairment, the first thing you have to know is which is the degree of your cognitive impairment, because sometimes it's not that bad. And the second thing you have to know is how to rearrange your workspace to overcome that cognitive impairment. And the third thing I will suggest is how to cope with the emotional disbalance that might cause you at work. Those would be the three fields I will suggest to consider to work through any type of cognitive impairment interface at work.
Thank you. I know it was a big question to throw out to you. Thank you for answering it so succinctly. And just when you're answering that, if people are experiencing mental health difficulties separate to MS, can they manifest in cognitive difficulties or cognitive impairment? How do you know can they be, are they two different things? Are they different things? Cognitive impairment because of MS and cognitive
Yeah.
impairment because of anxiety and distress.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you to go further in the presentation, because I had a slides about that. Can you
Okay,
go forward?
I will.
Yes, more, until you see the chicken. There, go.
There's the chicken.
There. That's the chicken. That is something that I wanted to address, because sometimes depression and, for this matter, anxiety will also work, are going to be around your head up to a time, or at the beginning, or at the middle, or at the end of your process of the disease. And people say that depression might be the cause or the consequence of losing your job. Depression and anxiety, for this matter, are both predictor of unemployment. That relationship is so straightforward. But there are some studies out there saying that they are not the cause, but they are the consequence of losing the employment. Because consider this, and if you help me going forward, I will show you another slides there that I wanted to use. Go more further. Another one. Yeah, there. That the previous one, please.
Oh,
The
sorry.
previous one about the
This one?
presenteeism. Yeah.
Okay.
This is something that I wanted to show you, because if you don't feel well and you go to work, you're doing presenteeism. And this was a new topic for me. And this is telling us that you are going to work even though you're not feeling well. And it has been reported several times among people with MS. They go to work even though they don't feel well. And that not feeling well combine a lot of different symptoms: cognitive symptoms, physical symptoms, or emotional symptoms. So if you force yourself to go to work even though you're not feeling like doing it, that is definitely correlated with increasing the disability, increasing fatigue, increasing depression, anxiety, and reducing your quality of life. And why is that important? Because if you do it continuously, that also has been seen that it will define in a medium long term that you will voluntary or involuntary decide to leave your work. Again, this links with that very important question I throw you. Is that the work you want to do? Are you happy with your work? Are you actually doing what you would like to do? Those things are not related with your MS. Those things are related with your own motivation about work. But the motivation together with the performance that you can get independently or due to your MS, that combination of those two factors will definitely define how happy you are in your workspace. So if you don't feel like it, that you have to be aware that in the meantime are going to ruin your work. And maybe that's time to start considering those questions that I throw you. Because if you don't feel well, then you have to act. If you don't like it, then you have to consider. And if your MS is not behaving, then you have to take responsibility.
They are. Thank you for that. Thank you for answering that question and for going into presenteeism so in depth, because I think that I think given our current economic circumstance across Europe and the changes in social services and the benefit system, I can understand why people would, even though they're sick and even though they're experiencing extremely bad symptoms, would still force themselves to go into work because they have rent to pay, they have a mortgage to pay, they have perhaps children, they have family, they need to eat. If there are people from the United States, in terms of the payment of their medical, you know, their treatment and everything else, you know, I think it's a hugely challenging situation for people to be in this modern time when the social care net has been dismantled so much, and homelessness and poverty are real issues for people with MS.
I actually know and understand why people do that. And that's, that's due to a lot of different politics and socio-economical reasons. But from my point of view, if you have to do it, then if you click to the next slide, please, Emma. I'm gonna put together these two concepts. If you go further, yeah. If you have to do it, if you have to go and work, even though you don't feel like you want it, or you don't feel, if you feel ill and you have to do it anyway, then you need coping tools. That you need to know how to cope with that, how to create the mental states, the attitude, and the behavior to cope with it. And because I definitely see why people do it. I definitely see why people go to work even though they don't feel fine. I urge them to go and seek for help and find which are the tools that will allow them to cope with that situation. And I was trying to explain in this slide these two different ways to cope, but my suggestion will go and find help that offer you coping strategies to deal with that situation. Because if you have to do it and you don't have the chance to change it, then you need these tools.
Thank you for. I think it's a huge challenge. It's a huge challenge for people, and as you said, by this slide, you're presenting everyone with, I suppose, ways of dealing with these massive challenges in a way that is healthy for the person with MS, as well as for their financial security. Really, is also what we're talking about.
Exactly.
I suppose it is time to finish up. Some of the comments that are coming through, the chicken and egg problem is a real eye opener. Thank you for the summary. It really sums up the problem. People are also, we have some questions about the one-to-one work coaching. Is that available in Spain? You were saying that is available in some places in Spain. It isn't available everywhere.
Well, I know
But
that here in
yeah,
Spain it's offered, but I don't know in
mhm.
other countries. I don't have that information.
Yeah, no, it's not offered in other countries. It's certainly not offered in Ireland. I think perhaps in Denmark they have a quite advanced social system for people with chronic illness in terms of working and also being supported by the state. If you work part-time, your income is also supplemented by the state. But I can certainly
But
provide people with that information.
but
Sorry, go
these kind
ahead.
of services, sorry, I just wanted to add that these kind of services most of the times are considered or are offered by MS societies.
Yes, yes, they are
So
specifically for MS,
yeah,
specifically and specifically
so yeah,
by
even though the whole state might not offer that service, but MS societies and MS organizations, as long as they are very professionalized, they can offer that. So that's
so
also room for offering these kind of services as well.
yes, and that's a great reminder that please do reach out to your local MS society, or there might be an occupational health service in your country that would provide some vocational and professional, say, rehabilitation and support with regards to changing your professional direction, but also supported with regards to work. We have come to the end of our time now. Yolanda, is there anything else you would like to add before we
Uh,
finish up?
if you just go to my very last slides, I just
I
wanted to
will.
wrap it all with only a thought
And let me
that
see. Is this it?
that's the final consideration thing. This is again those three aspects that we started with, and with this one here, if you click, you will see that your MS will go back to you and your work concerns will also go back to you, because then again, if you click again, please, you need to take control. My suggestion will be take control over these three aspects: over yourself, over your professional plans, and over your needs, because that's the way you will feel that you are successfully living the life that you want to live.
And thank you. That is a big challenge for everyone to end with. I
Yeah,
think we have. Thank you, everyone, for all your questions, and thank you for your time, Yolanda. I think that was a really uh, illuminating presentation. I think you brought everyone down different paths that we didn't expect to go down, and you have left us with lots of different questions about our own lives. Are we happy? Which is an awfully big question to ask somebody. Very.
awfully. You knew I was going to do that.
I knew you were going to do that, but it also encourages it challenges us, but also by going to the answers, I think it enriches our life experience. And really that is what we want to do on these webinars, that we bring you all the attendees, that we bring you something different. We bring you a unique perspective on living with MS. We understand the challenges of living with MS, but we also know that there are different ways to deal with those challenges. So certainly thank you so much, Yolanda. We really appreciate your time, and we really
Thank
appreciate
you.
your perspective on things. You have said that we can make the presentation available to people. We will
Yeah.
also provide people with the recording in the next couple of days. And if anyone has any questions, we will please send me an email. It's emma.rogan@emsp.org. You can contact us on emsp.org. We are also on Twitter and Facebook. And if you have any questions or comments on MS, on work, on mental health, please send them to us. You're not on your own. And I think that's one of the great things about these webinars. We have pulled together more than 100 people over the last two webinars. And it has really shown from me the interest across Europe from people with MS and people interested in MS and working in the area, that, you know, there are many of us together dealing with all of these challenges, and by dealing with them together, we're able to work out better ways of living. So thank you, Yolanda.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you, the platform, for me this opportunity. I'm so happy to do these kind of things, and I'll be happy to share with you any other time that you require me to.
Wonderful. So Gilles, our IT person, if you would like to end the webinar. Thank you very much.